Husband breaks down after woman dies 27 hours prior to giving birth. Matt and Liz Lodgelin, a Minnesota-born couple, looked to be able to manage anything from high school to a lengthy, distant relationship, from great occupations to establishing a baby. Everything was going swimmingly until their daughter arrived. Then, catastrophe struck, changed their life for the better. It will be great if you like and share this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon next to it to get notified when we add new interesting videos in the future. Now, let's get back to the story. Liz initially met Matt at a petrol station when they were both seniors in high school and both mispronounced his name. It started a fairy tale love affair, and the two lovebirds grew inseparable until it was time for him to go to school. Liz went to California for college, while Matt attended a local university. The mother rests on the bed with her newborn baby shortly after a natural water delivery labor. Matt made a life-changing decision when debating whether to pursue a PhD after finishing his master's degree. Matt chose to relocate halfway across the nation to be with his sweetheart in Los Angeles after all those years away. The two then grabbed life by the horns. They traversed the world, making new memories with life and love. Appearing to be on their side, in Nepal, Matt proposed to Liz. Following the exchange of vows in 2005, Matt and Liz were overjoyed to begin their lives together, and everything looked to be going swimmingly. Matt works as a project manager at Yahoo, while Liz works as a finance executive at Disney. The couple bought a house together, but their joy did not stop there. The young couple discovered they were expecting their first child, a daughter, 2 years after their marriage. They couldn't wait to tell their friends and family, but because they couldn't all be there, they delighted in starting a pregnancy blog to keep them updated. With cute images on the site, they brought readers up to date on Liz's growth regularly. Liz's pregnancy, on the other hand, was difficult. Liz experienced terrible morning sickness and was even hospitalized for a few weeks after her pregnancy was deemed high risk. Meanwhile, Matt kept a close check on his wife and updated their pregnant blog. On March 24, 2008, the couple gave birth to their daughter, Madeline Maddie, through cesarean section. Maddie was sent to the neonatal ICU after Liz met her baby girl for the first time. Matt announced the birth on his blog. Madeline is here. The proud parents will continue to update everyone on their beautiful baby. Look forward to evening more good news, he added, but he'd never have imagined the words he'd soon be writing. Doctors, however, forced her to stay in bed for another 24 hours before she was allowed to meet her baby. It was a moment Liz and Matt had long awaited, but just as the three of them were about to enjoy some much-needed bonding time, tragedy struck when, as Matt tenderly assisted Liz into the wheelchair, Liz abruptly uttered, "I feel lightheaded," and collapsed in his arms. Even though the nurses informed him that fainting is typical among new mothers, Matt had the impression that something was wrong with his beloved wife. Liz was just 30 years old when a rare, deadly pulmonary embolism stole her life only 24 hours after giving birth. Matt was devastated and left reeling. Matt reminisced meticulously about how she would never be able to hold her kid. Matt had gone from delighted new father to sad widowed in a single day. He anticipated filling the pregnant blog with dotting photos of the happy family, but his next brag was tragic. On the same day, my world fell apart, he mournfully wrote. Matt found himself as both a bereaved Riddler and an infatuated new parent navigating the perplexing storm of emotions. He was taken aback by Todd's decision to raise infant Maddie on his own. He went to the ward and, for the first time, held his little daughter. Matt felt the house come alive again when he finally got to bring Maddie home for the first time since Liz died. The first few weeks after Liz died had been awful, but Matt was encouraged by the notion that his daughter needed him, that a part of his wife lived on in her. Matt began posting on an online parenting forum to release his overwhelming emotions. In addition, he repurposed his and Liz's pregnancy blog into a personal parenting blog. Writing provided some consolation for the lone father. Matt's blog, now named Matt, Liz, and Madeline Life and Death All in 27 Hours Time, would be a significant virtual scrapbook for Madeline since he got valuable information on how to care for a newborn from parents in similar situations. Out of sadness, it created something inspirational and amazing. The forum quickly became a popular cathartic outlet, getting tens of thousands of views every day. Along with their insightful comments, the site also served as a rallying point for something very touching, Aside from the good wishes, the single father began to get a range of gifts such as diaper bags, baby nail clippers, and baby outfits, which quickly filled their tiny living room. "I never imagined that people would care about us the way they do," Matt gratefully said. Matt established a non-profit foundation in Liz's honor with the assistance of some of his ardent fans. Because Liz was a runner, the charity staged 5K walks and races in Liz's hometown, and all proceeds were donated to the widows and widowers Matt met through his blog, which was maintained entirely by volunteers. On the weekend closest to Liz's birthday, September 17, the charity also organized a Celebration of Hope Gala and a 5K walk. One Hope for the Whole World, the Liz Lodge Lynn Foundation receives 100% of the proceeds from these initiatives, but the narrative does not end there. Matt was shocked by how much his daughter resembled his late wife as time passed. He recognized that his blog is, in many ways, a love letter to Madeline and Liz. "I want Madeline to know that her dad didn't just curl up in a ball and start drinking heavily. I wanted her to know that I was out there doing as much as I could for her and trying to make her happy as I could," Matt said. Matt flew to India in 2009 with Maddie at his side to write a memoir titled Two Kisses for Maddie, A Tale of Grief and Love. Matt and Liz had flown to India following their wedding, the book became an instant New York Times bestseller, and there was more good fortune in store. In 2016, rumors spread that Channing Tatum will feature in a big-budget Hollywood film version of the novel, with the renowned actress eventually serving as executive producer and maybe even acting in the next father-daughter romance. So, where does it all go? What about Matt and Maddie? Following the biography, Matt collaborated with his friend Sarah Jensen on a children's book titled Be Glad Your Dad Isn't an Octopus. It's a witty, twisted version of the Would You Rather game with lovely pictures by Jared Chapman that's been gaining a lot of attention. Maddie celebrated her 10th birthday on March 24, 2018. That date also marked 10 years since her mother's terrible passing. Maddie has gotten to know her mother via tales and images over the years. She also became active in the foundation's operations and even tried things that were not normally done by the organization. Matt had done everything he could to surround his daughter with love and happiness to honor his late wife, Lizzie's memory. His experience serves as a wonderful learning lesson for others on how to recover from a tragedy and make the most of what appears to be an impossible circumstance. Here's another story. 13 years after the birth of her children, a woman gives birth to triplets. 13 years after the first two triplets were born, an American mother gave birth to a third healthy triplet. Lena Beasley, Debbie Beasley's youngest daughter, was born 5 months ago after spending 13 years in a freezer cooled to negative 235 degrees Celsius. As if the chances against her becoming a normal kid weren't already stacked against her, Lana also survived her mother's near-fatal response to the fertility medication Lupron and an 8-hour trip over the sweltering Californian desert while still a 2-celled embryo. Mrs. Beasley and her husband, Kent, named their daughter Lena, which means God's gift. "Every day I hold her, look at her, and gaze at her beautiful blue eyes," Mrs. Beasley, 45, said from her home in San Francisco last night. "I still can't believe it. I was absolutely overwhelmed when she was born. I heard her scream, and I started to cry, and then I held her in my arms, and I was filled with joy." When Debbie and Kent Beasley met in the late 1980s, they both had children from prior marriages, but they quickly realized they couldn't raise a family together. They began IVF therapy at UC Irvine in California, where Mrs. Beasley's eggs were drug tested, collected, and fertilized with her husband's sperm. After that, some of the eggs were implanted in her fallopian tube. Because the operation had a 50% likelihood of success, the Beasleys had 12 extra embryos stored for later use. Mrs. Beasley became pregnant with triplets in 1992 after the therapy was effective. She had one miscarriage, but her twins, Jeffrey and Carly, were born healthily. The Beasleys found in 1995 that the specialist who had treated them, Dr. Ricardo Ash, had been collecting eggs and embryos from his patients and implanting them in other women or shipping them to other researchers. They discovered that Dr. Ash had removed hundreds of Mrs. Beasley's eggs, and after suing the clinic and UC Irvine, they were able to retrieve 8 of the 12 embryos that had been planned to be used during the therapy. Despite being devastated when they found that 4 of their embryos had been given away, the couple chose to try for another baby in 1996. After making their decision, they took their 4-year-old twins to the reproductive clinic where their leftover embryos were held in freezers. Mrs. Beasley considers the 8-hour travel over the California desert to be the most meaningful drive of her life. Jeffrey and Carly were barely 4 years old when we put them in the back of the car. They didn't understand what was going on, but our 11-year-old daughter was with us, and she had a better understanding, said Mrs. Beasley. We told the twins it was very important to get the embryos home quickly and to keep them safe. We couldn't let the containers get hotter than 75 degrees, and it was 90 degrees outside. After that, 2 of the embryos were frozen and put in her womb. She was given the fertility medicine Lupron during her second round of therapy, which pushed her into anaphylactic shock and nearly killed her. She miscarried the 2 embryos she was carrying. Despite this, and despite being gravely ill, she was adamant about having another child. She tried again, 7 years later, this time going to a reproductive expert in San Francisco. Lena was born on February 4, 2005, 5 weeks preterm, but weighing 6 pounds 4 ounces. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share the video. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you, and see you on the next one. Bye!